I would like to thank Andy for the opportunity to co-chair this session. I'd like to thank the entire Foundation for Women and Girls with Blood Disorders for the opportunity to co-chair today. And I'd like to add my welcome to hers. And I just would like to make a couple of comments before we get on to the main body of our program. So as Andy has said, the title of this symposium is Emerging Technologies to Improve Diagnosis and Access and Treatment of Women with Blood Disorders. We've divided it into two sections. The first half of the program will really talk about emerging science and technologies, primarily in the diagnostic and monitoring arenas. The second half of the program will be devoted to talking about strategies for the treatment of women with blood disorders during pregnancy. In most of the talks, what you're going to hear about are significant gaps in the evidence that allows us to practice in the way we want to with respect to women's health. I can tell you that the absence of research or the paucity of research in women's health is something that has come to the attention of the NIH. And before we begin, what I'd like to do is to just tell you a little bit about the NIH priorities and how the information that we gather at this meeting will inform some of these priorities. So I think I need my first slide, which isn't coming up. Can I have the next slide, please? Let's see. There. Next slide, then. Nope, I guess my slides didn't come into the mix. Okay. So let me just tell you very briefly then. Certainly Congress, our investigators, have told us with no uncertainty that we need to do more at the NIH to facilitate women's health. And of course, there are gaps. And why are the gaps, and why are getting rid of those gaps important? Well, number one, women really represent a substantial constituency with respect to blood disorders, and their particular needs need attention. They also represent a significant amount of the morbidity and mortality associated with certain disorders, for instance, bleeding disorders, and pregnancy as a state in and of itself creates a situation in which not only are women 3 times more likely to have thrombosis, but they also are at high risk for peripartum bleeding. Besides which, generally speaking, in many situations, epidemiology and the clinical manifestations of disease are different in women. And quite frankly, in not studying women, I think we have to understand from a scientific perspective, what are we missing? And what potential harm are we doing by not studying diagnosis and treatment specifically in women? And this is something that permeates both our basic science and our clinical science. From the basic science perspective, as we go into studying, even at the most basic levels, single-cell technology, what is the gender of that single cell going to be? Certainly in preclinical animal studies, we were quite appalled to find out how many animal studies in women's diseases are done using predominantly male mice. These are issues that have to be addressed and will be addressed in order for us to really understand the pathobiology of disease and how it applies to women. And from the clinical perspective, since 1993, we've had a mandate to include women in clinical trials. And actually, data that I would have shown you showed that we actually do fairly well about enrolling women. But in only our data from 2013 showed that in only 14 of 262 trials did we report results in a gender-based or sex-based way, such that if there were particular findings for women, we did not report them that way. And again, that is something that we need to correct. So in the future, what we hope is that we have a pathway to science that goes from bench to bedside, bedside back to bench, that is informed by both results-based analysis and sex-based analysis and sex-based reporting that will truly inform the health of women. And based on what you're going to hear today, you're going to see that certainly the agenda for National Heart, Lung, and Blood will definitely be informed by the gaps in research in women's health, women, and particularly women with blood disorders. So having said that, and it's good I didn't have slides, I probably did it faster, I'm going to go ahead and turn the chair back over to Andy, and she'll introduce our first speaker as we get down to the scientific program. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Donna.